Namo Shakyamuni Buddha. So today we continue to discuss about the right speech that we have covered last time. That we based upon the Buddha teaching that we need to distress ourselves from having untruthful speech, gossiping, slander, libel, abuse speech, idle chatter, and so forth. So let us review one more times why the speech is so important in our life, because when we speak, this is the nature mode of our verbal expression. We need to be careful what type of language we want to express ourselves to the audience according to their needs and the situations. We need to be careful the manner of how we convey our message to them verbally. So of course, it's dependent on our intentions. Besides that, how we express ourselves with that kind of informations verbally through the way that we express ourselves and the power of our voice, the pitch of our voice, the clarity of our voice, and according to modern psychology, there's all kind of informations that we like to convey orally. Besides, there's some information that we like to share with others. There's some things that we want to persuade other people to follow us, to believe in us, or some technical matters that we want to explain for others. Like a professor provide the guidance and instruction for the student to follow, some kind of entertainments that other people try to help others to enjoy their speaking. So no matter what, this is important for us to communicate with other people as long as we have the intention to share with others. So that's kind of sharing intention would go hand in hand without having a kind of blaming or criticism. And basically, we need to deliver that kind of informations through our verbal expression in the authentic way, how we clearly express ourselves by providing some information that we observe in the proper way, and it will convey our feeling, it will convey our needs and audible needs, it will convey the requests of others and ourselves. So we need to recognize whether our speech would be compassionate or understandable, or our speech may create some kind of fear, guilt, shame, blame, and so forth. So we have to understand that. That's why verbal expression is so important. That if we somehow could not express ourselves properly, or people may feel they were threatened, they were criticized, and so forth. They would not like to listen to our words. And that's why the Buddha say that it's better for the Buddhists to restrain ourselves from slandering, from gossiping, from abuse speech, and so forth. So in one particular sutra, the Buddha say that when we recognize the right speech, we need to abstain from those speech, from lying, divisible speech, abusive speech, idle child speech, and so forth. So that's called the right speech. And in one particular sutra, the Buddha said that a statement and those with 5 factors is well spoken, not ill spoken. It is blameless and unfolded by knowledgeable people. So they are the speech that was spoken at the right time. It is spoken in the according to the truth. Is spoken pertinently. It was spoken beneficially. It was spoken with the mind of goodwill. So those are the 5 keys to have a right speech. So again, the Buddha reminds us that if we want to convey a message, we need to wait for the right time, the right moment to convey. Otherwise, even that is the truth that people want to listen. But if we convey that type of message at the wrong times, it's not easy for other people to understand. For example, if we want to share some information that we have learned in the class, but somehow we wake up our friends midnight. So there's no way for them to concentrate their mind to understand what we want to share with them about those information. So we have to wait for the right time to tell them. And the next one, the Buddha said that it was spoken in truth. That means no matter what, we need to convey and deliver the message truthfully. Whichever thing happen, the information we deliver or convey should be the truth. Otherwise, in the future, they would recognize us. We would not be a truthful person. For example, let's say if we tell them that we were sick yesterday, yes, if we were sick, definitely, eventually they would recognize that message, that information. But let's say if we just make up the story instead of attend the class, and we made the accuse that oh, we were sick, that's why we could not attend the class. And if the teacher, the professor find out that we just made that excuse so that we would not attend the class, that would be problematic. So no matter what, in Buddhist view, we need to tell the truth. And it was spoken affectionately. That means if we say something that people like to listen, if we say something that's more pleasant for them, that is the thing that we can speak, we can share with other people orally. It was spoken beneficially. Whichever thing we say, we need to recognize whether it's bring the benefit for ourselves and others. We can speak, we can tell others. Otherwise, we have to restrain. For example, if we let our students know that they need to finish their exam on time, so that they can move on to the next lesson. So that is why they can finish their exam, so that they can move on to the learning process. Otherwise, it's not easy for them. And also, whichever thing we say, we need to recognize if it's beneficial, we would share. we would encourage them to study hard for their benefit, so that they could finish up their course or degree or professions, so that they could have the chance to move on in their life. So that is what concerned about the benefit of sharing the informations. So the next one, that's number 5. The Buddha reminds us that we need to speak something with a mind of goodwill. That means whenever we say something, we have to have good intention to share those information. Again, if we have intention that we want to help our student to understand about the subject that they are learning, we would find some ways to help them to understand that kind of subject, because we have intention that they will be successful, they would be knowledgeable after they done with our course. So these are the 5 keys to the right speak. So again, let me repeat that. So the Buddha reminds that we need to speak at the right time. We need to speak the truth. We need to speak with our affections. We need to speak with something that's more beneficial for others. We need to speak with the goodwill. That means good intention. So that's why in some particular sutra, the Buddha reminds us other conditions that we need to contemplate before we express ourselves verbally. So in some particular sutra, the Buddha said that we need to contemplate that do I speak at the right time or not. So again, like I give you that example, even we want to share some important beneficial informations to others, if we speak the wrong times, they would not understand, they would not accept those information. Again, like we wake them up at midnight, there's no way for them to concentrate their mind, there's no way for them to understand easily at midnight. So we have to wait for the right time to convey that message or information. So in essence, Buddha reminds us that we need to contemplate that do I speak of the facts or not? That means do I speak of the truth? Whichever thing we say, we need to recognize as whether we say something without manipulation, without adding a subtraction of those informations. Uh, uh, so we need to stay with the truth, whether it's maybe hurtful, but we still need to tell the truth. For example, somehow, let's say if we break our cell phone when we drop down to the floor, or we may break our friend's cell phone or computer because of accident. So we may tell them the truth and say sorry. Somehow, accidentally, I dropped your laptop on the floor. I would find some way to compensate you with that laptop or iPhone or cell phone. So sometimes we may reason ourselves that we try to stay away from blending. So that's why the Buddha said that no matter what, it's better to tell the truth, accept a mistake, and correct that kind of mistake. So that's number 2. And number 3, the Buddha said that before we say something, we need to contemplate ourselves. Do I speak gently or harshly? So when we say something, we need to recognize whether we say or tell other people with the gentle speech or hard speech. So of course, every one of us want to listen to the pleasant, gentle speech, not the hard speech. Mm. So that's why when we talk to other people, we need to be mindful how we convey that message and how we recognize the feeling of other people. If we convey our message in a gentle way, in the pleasant way, yeah, it's more chance for other people to accept our message. Otherwise, if we just yell to them, if we just say something so harsh for them to listen, unpleasant words, it's not easy for them to accept the information, whether it's beneficial or not. It's not easy for them to accept those information. So that's number 3. And number 4, would I say that we need to contemplate before we speak. Do I speak beneficial word or not? So again, whenever we say something, we need to recognize that if we try to help others, if we try to bring benefit to others or not, if it's hurtful, we would need to restrain ourselves from saying those things. And if we share the information that may be beneficial for others, we can go ahead to share. So no matter what things we want to say, we need to contemplate and remember that it's so important that everyone wants to listen to our message, especially the message that may be beneficial, um, so that they could understand and do something that will be helpful for them. Like we explain for them how to drive a car properly, how to cook the food, how to fix the cable, and so forth, so that they could do by themselves. And that's number 4. And number 5, the Buddha reminds us that we need to contemplate that do I speak with a kind heart or malicious word? That means we need to recognize if we speak with good intention, uh, with loving kindness, with compassionate intention, definitely other people would understand and accept easily. But if we say something that may be tricky uh, for them to recognize, it's not easy for them to accept. So again, it's related to right intention that we learned before. So no matter what things that we want to express ourselves, we should stick with a good intention that we want to help others. We want to share those information, convey those information so that they can be helpful for others, not to be harmful for others. So that is so important in Buddhist way of life. So to have the kind heart, to have compassionate intention is so crucial when we communicate orally with other people. So that's why the Buddha mentioned that these are the 5 conditions that we need to contemplate before we say something else. And in one particular sutra, again, the Buddha remind us that we need to recognize if there's some words that are untrue, unbeneficial, unendearing, and disagreeable to others. The Buddha advised that we do not say. those things. So again, if it's untrue, unbeneficial, unpleasant, and disagreeable with other people, it's better not to say. And the next one is that if even it's true, but it's unbeneficial, it's unpleasant, and disagreeable, he advised us that we're supposed not to say too, because if that's the truth, but somehow it's not beneficial for others, and it's unpleasant, and no one agree with those information, it's better to restrain, to keep silent. Mm. For example, let's say if something happened and it's so frightening for many people, so it's better to keep ourselves instead of say something that bring the chaos or the fear to other people. So that's number two. Number three is that if it's in case that even it's true, it's beneficial, but it's unpleasant and disagreeable to others. So the Buddha said that it's better for us to wait for the right moment, the proper moment to share with those information. So again, if something happened, it's beneficial for others, but somehow it's unpleasant and other people would not agree much. So we have to wait for the right moment to share. Otherwise, it will be chaos for others to understand that kind of things. So let's say if something happened, let's say somehow we encounter car accident, that is true. But now we said, so our family members may not accept that we have encountered car accident. So we have to wait until the right moment, right time to settle out everything and tell them that accident. Otherwise, if we just tell them upfront and directly, it's not easy for them to accept. So there's some cases we need to wait on the right moment, the right time to share those information. And the Buddha said that if it's some case that untrue, unbeneficial, but is pleasant and readable to others, again, he advised us that we're not supposed to share with others. Again, if there's some rumor, and if those rumors would not bring any benefit for ourselves and others, but of course, it may be pleasant to hear those rumors. So would I say that it's better not to say, not to spread those information. And the next case is that if it's true, but it's unbeneficial, but somehow it's pleasant and readable, the Buddha advised us that we're not supposed to say it too. For example, if something happened to us, but somehow it's hurtful experience that other people may not need to understand, not need to hear, so it's better not to say. And the last one, the Buddha said that if it's true, it's beneficial, it's pleasant and readable, definitely we need to wait the right moment to share those information too. So this kind of conditions that the Buddha reminds us that as much they are true, they are beneficial, and they are pleasant for others to listen, definitely we would share with them, but at the right time. If we share at the wrong moment and wrong times, it's not easy for all people to accept. So that's why it's so important but to recognize that it's so important to remember how we say, how we convey our message to others. So in general, those sutras, the Buddha always remind us that we need to contemplate that whether whichever thing we say will be helpful for us or not, is be helpful for other people or not. If it's helpful for ourselves and others, we would need to convey those messages. And even if we want to admonish or remind other people, we need to recognize whether it is helpful or not. For example, if we uh, want to remind our children or students that they need to do homework because they're so lazy, if we have good intention or compassionate intention that we want them to be successful in school, so no matter what we say, with that kind of intention, it will be more helpful for them. Even it's in some form of admonishment. So again, this is so important. The right intention that we need to take into account so that we can convey the message in a proper way, in a beneficial way, or in helpful way, so that people could accept and understand. Even sometimes it's not easy for them to understand. But again, with the right intention of compassion and loving kindness, we convey that message. We tell them so that they can correct themselves, to study hard, to do the work. So again, we need to practice honesty and mindfulness so that whenever we say something, we recognize that those benefit would affect to the listener, the audience, to the one that listen to our message, that we have to have a sense of moral, noble, and being right. And of course, we have the tendency that we want other people to listen to our conversation, but somehow with those right intention, um, uh, we would gain more listeners. Otherwise, even we don't want to have some kind of conflicts. But if somehow we don't pay attention about how mindful we need to be, and especially if we say something that be offended to other people, definitely they would walk away and they would not want to listen to us anything. And that's why the Buddha suggests us we need to be careful and check with our intention, um, and check to see whether it's the right moment, right times, the right person for us to say. And if something that hard to explain, it's better to remain silent. For example, in the case of Buddha, when one time when he was teaching the monks and nuns at a monastery, so somehow one deer ran to them, and later on a hunter came up and ask the Buddha whether he had seen the deer running around. So at that moment, the Buddha just remained silent. So again, that's why in Buddhism we have the themes that we need to remain silent and according to the proper Dharma. We need to speak properly, truthfully, according to the Dharma. So it means whenever we say, we have to say the truth. And if some difficult situation, like you just mentioned recently, that it's better to remain silent. So again, if the Buddha say, "Oh, I don't see the deer," that's mean he tell lie. But if he point out the direction for the deer to run, so definitely the hunter will follow and hunt out that deer. And again, it should be harmful for that deer. So that's why the Buddha remained silent so that he would not fall into the trap of ten lie or harm to the deers. So no matter what, as a Buddhist, the Buddha reminds us that we need to recognize us whenever we say things, it should be helpful, it should be beneficial. Otherwise, just try to remain calm, even silent. And you need to check with our tone, whether we raise our voice in the angry way or the offended way. We need to recognize us because somehow some people they have that kind of habitual patterns. Even they have a kind heart, even they don't have intention to offend other people, but because of their habitual patterns, that's why somehow in their oral expression, they used to raise the voice and as make other people feel that they're so aggressive, and of course they would not like to listen to those words. So again, here the Buddha reminds us we need to recognize those aspects before we convey the message, especially like we discussed before. The Buddha reminds us that whenever we say something, whether we say with our kindness and goodwill or not, if we speak with goodwill, it's more likely people would listen and accept the message that we try to convey. And again, if we maintain a sense of good intention, that's we would have more motivation to speak about those helpful information or message, like the parents. The reason why we depict some moral stories or conduct for our students or children because we want them to become a good person in the future. Right? So that's why sometimes the children or the student they may say, "Oh, I have heard those words so many times," but again, when they were young, they would not recognize the benefit of those measures. But when they get in older, they would still remember those measures when they come across to some situations. For example, let's say when they were young, the parents used to remind them that they're not supposed to tell lie, for example. And definitely they say, okay, yeah, I understand that I would not tell lie. But what happened when they get older and somehow they come across a situation that somehow is so tempting for them to tell lie so that they can get the job done, so that they can convince other people to do business with them. So if they remember about their parents' message when they were young, that they're not supposed not to tell lie, so they will stick with their principle. So that's why as much as we have good intention to say something true, other people would recognize now or later. So another thing is in Buddhist view, it's better not to judge anyone else. If they behave in different ways, if they have their poor views, if they believe in different traditions, or if they want to go different path, again, that's their choice. As long as we have some influence on them, as long as if we can say something that they can trust, they can listen, we can do. So otherwise, if they don't want to listen to us, anything, that's their choice. So we don't need to make the judgment whether it's based on the way how they act, how they behave, or based on their race, their nationalities, their age, their gender. As Buddhists, we're not supposed to make any kind of judgment based on those things. The only thing we can do is to share information. And if they want to accept or not, that's their choice. And the only thing that we can concern is our own mind. It's not a selfish approach, but that's all we can do, because we can transform our mind, but we cannot control others. So no matter who we are, whether we are parents, a teacher, professors, a leader, and so forth, that's the way we respect other people views, lives, just give them some freedom to move around, not to dictate how we want them to do something according to our way of life. So again, that is the good view, that we have a good intention, that we want to share the information, that if they want to listen and follow those strict guidance, that's great. If they want, that's a choice too. So that's another thing we need to recognize. And again, if let's say someone have the verbal abuse, they want to hurt us, they want to offend us. So as a Buddhist, sometimes we may be patient, but other times it affects you, other people, the whole communities, or many people. It's better for us to speak up about the truth, so that they would recognize the mistake. They would stop that cruelty, that kind of selfish attitude. And so depend upon the situation, because we have intention to express ourselves beneficially to others. And it's not expectation, but whenever someone says something that's more hurtful, so abusive, again, we need to find some way to convince them that they're not supposed to say those things. Of course, especially as a parents and teacher, we need to guide our children or students in the proper way when they yell at each other, when they accuse each other, and so forth. We tell them that's not the proper way for them to express themselves. They're not supposed to hurt other people orally or verbally. And that's a lesson we can teach them. And of course, when we deal with other people, yeah, we understand if they mature enough to recognize whatever thing they say, eventually they will get into trouble with authorities, if they have those kind of abusive speech or hurtful speech, yeah, definitely, like before, in this country we have the freedom of speech, but still, if they convey themselves in a negative way, and not many people want to listen to them. So that's why the Buddha said that we need to remain calm and peaceful when we express ourselves peacefully and calmly, so that other people would understand and accept those informations. And so that's the important things that we need to remember. That another thing I need to mention here is that when we say something, um, if we uh, stick with our principle that we have intention to help other people, but somehow as human, uh, we have some tendency to be biased toward other people. We have tendencies that we like someone that follow our own way of life, someone that like our path, like our Buddhist way of life, like our business that we are doing, like the way that we behave, and so forth. And we may not like other people to do a different way, to follow different path. So that's our human tendency. But still, as Buddhists, we need to respect their way of life. We're not supposed to judge them based upon their belief, their race, their gender, and so forth. So that's at least we could stay away from those kind of bias speech or bias attitude toward other people. So no matter what, in any kind of situation as a Buddhist, we need to find some way to avoid the suffering, to reduce the sufferings, and to increase the chance of happiness. That's why with this type of right intention, the compassion and loving kindness speech, definitely other people may feel more comfortable, they feel more happy when they listen to us. And if we say something without any kind of bias, without any kind of judgment, definitely people would like to listen more than in the case that we say in some way that we judge these people and that people based upon their nationalities, their gender, and so forth. So uh, again, sometimes we express ourselves uh, in the manner that we could not recognize, we could not be mindful much. Because sometimes, let's say, if we want to say something, but somehow because we could not be mindful with things that we say, that may be offensive to other people. Let's say if we like to help our children uh, uh, to stop from touching the fire, but because they're too young to understand that when they touch the fire, they may get burned. But at that moment, somehow, if we could not stop them from far distance, we may yell at them to stop. And other people, if they just look from the far side, they may think, oh, the parents somehow they have that type of harsh speech, or they yell to their children. But actually, because we want to stop our children from touching the fireplace so that they won't get burned. But other people, they may not recognize us, but still, with the good intention, eventually they would recognize us. And again, the other matter that we need to recognize that we need to remember when we say we have to say in the proper times, and when we say that we have to say in the pleasant way. Okay, some from this message of the Buddhas is better for us to conduct ourselves in the proper way, especially when we communicate with other people. So since time is up, I'd like to stop here today. And next time we will discuss further about why right speech is so important with those elements that Buddha remind us that we just discussed recently. Okay, Namo Shakyamuni Buddha.